The gist of it,
Okay.
yes. But yeah, that it's transformed into moly.
All right, guys, we're going live.
I watched the video of the incident.
Well, there's a video.
Yeah, I mean, you got.
Okay, we're live?
We're live. All right. Okay. Thank you, Joe.
Yep, you're welcome.
Call the meeting to order. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge of
Allegiance to the flag of the United States, for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thanks, Joe.
Leave it open.
Okay. Okay, next is consent agenda. Recommended action is approve the following items which are included in the consent agenda. 5A minutes, 6A coaching volunteer assistant, 7A creation of extracurricular activity account, 7B AV reduction, 7C athletic mergers, 7D resolution for the disposal of personal property, and 7E special education. Look for a motion to accept.
Yes.
You, Colleen.
Second,
Second it.
Thank you, Martha. Does anybody want anything removed or any discussion on any of it? If not, please vote. Uh, 6 yes. Motion carries. For good of the cause. Aaron's looking.
Nothing.
Nothing at the moment. So moving on to reports. Budget performance report. Dana?
I was looking at this, I'm like, oh my goodness, this is November. November seems so long ago. It's getting ready for the December one. But if you look at it for the month of November, quick glance, you would think, oh my goodness, our revenue is down by $1 million. And expenditures are down by $500,000, which is good, $1 million. And remember, these are all, this is more like a month by month, and it's all about what came in last year in the month of November versus what came in this year in the month of November. Really, if you want to focus on it, it's the year to date, July to November type of deal. We're slightly below where we were last year in terms of revenue. It says again about $1 million, but in reality, enough to date, looking at today, we're really based off of today, we're only off about $280,000 for revenue. So it goes back to what I've been saying all along, is it's always about, it's a snapshot. When things get put into the system, and that's where it's a comparison, but not necessarily shows the whole picture, because of things get put in different times, money gets paid, their property taxes, not the same time every year. Our expenditures, again, slightly off in terms of where we were last year, about 35%, or 28%, but we're still, this is showing very nicely at about $2 million under. But again, if you look at today, it's actually about $459,000 under. So that's trending where we are. We are spending a little less than we were last year at this time. And we're having a fairly normal year in terms of transportation and all that. So we're not seeing the restrictions yet that we saw over the last year and a half cycle. So it's a fairly accurate depiction of where we are and where we're trending in terms of revenue and expenditures. The projection still has us looking at, by the end of the year, we're still projecting in the positive in terms of our revenue versus our expenditures. But again, that could change in a moment depending on, the situation we're in, in terms of transportation and all that. But I think we're trending so far normally. We haven't just had to say no to field trips or anything like that or all that. I mean, we're really, for the most part, spending the way we typically would, say 2 years ago, prior to the COVID outbreak. So we're trending pretty normal with that. As I said, looking at it, we're on par. $286,000 off in revenue, and about $459,000 less in expenditures. So all said and done, we're still doing pretty well. Questions on the performance report? No, just the desk.
Thank you. Want to keep going? Treasurer's report?
Treasury reports, you'll see we are flush with money in our cash sweep. As of, again, November, about $19 million in there. And really that highlights two things. Really at the peak of collecting our property taxes is where most of that $19 million is being generated from. I think we got all but like $400,000 of our property tax came in, which again is about typical. That gets reported to the county, and by April, we're made whole. The county, in the end, they collect what's remaining. We get it by April from the county, whether the property owner pays it or not through the county. They make us whole, and then they continue seeking that reimbursement, that property tax. By April, we'll have everything in there. Out of that 19 million, a little under $3 million is still from the capital fund. Yes, we still have money in the capital fund. We have not closed that project out. Sadly to say, it's still open. But all said and done, we are trending where we typically are in terms of our monthly report. This isn't anything unusual. We're outstanding about $400,000, and that's just typical in terms of when checks go out. Then you usually ask the question, and the answer
Yes.
is usually the same. It's BOCES.
Yep.
Most of that money is, and again, that if you look at it with the BOCES, it's $366,000, and I went out just before Thanksgiving. So again, we're talking November's report, not December's report. In 2 weeks, we'll talk about December's report, but nothing unusual here in terms of the Treasury reports. Questions on the finances?
No, thank you.
Good, thank you.
Operations committee reports? I can keep going.
Keep going. You're on a
Really,
roll.
not much to report there. I do want to spend a little time. The document is in the information for the board. It was the insurance claim on the cracks in the front of the middle high building. Basically, I'll just summarize what that letter stipulates is the insurance adjusters deemed that they're not going to pay the claim. That they believe, their structural engineers and adjusters believe that the cracks were not a result of the work being done by or the front of the building. They believe the cracks were more about wear and tear than anything else. They weren't done by way of vibration. That was, in essence, what the letter is saying. Therefore, they were rejecting the claim. So going forward, if it's something we want to repair, we're going to have to repair it out of our own funds. That's really, in terms of operations wise, that's probably the biggest thing we talked about. I said over the last couple of months, we've been waiting for the blinking lights at the bottom of the hill to come in, and it came in today. So it's sitting over the middle high school. It is here. It finally came. I think we submitted the purchase order on October 1st. So it's only taken a couple months to get here. So over the next few weeks, we'll work with the outdoor crew and Joe and Tim with that hopefully installed. We don't have to change the pole out. We can still use the same pole. We're basically just changing out the electronics of it. Hopefully hopefully we'll have that for the next month. So weather detecting. That's kind of where we are. You know, we haven't had an opportunity to meet with the break and stuff like that for our operations. Other than, you know, we do have a new food service director, which you guys approved, and she's been here now for a few weeks, and things be running pretty smoothly there. So that's a good thing. I think it's been a pretty easy transition from Dorothy to now Ruth. She's up and running, and she's doing it and doing it well because I see her in passing, and occasionally she'll ask a question, but she knows what she's doing and she knows what she has to get done. So she's doing a very nice job.
She's really nice.
Yeah, so he has really taken it and is running with it. It's a good thing. That's where we are operationally.
Question on the letter from Utica National. Is there any way to rebut the letter?
When I spoke to the person, he says there is an avenue to do it, but if you look at the very end, because it says, oh, look at the end of the letter. Basically it says if you disagree with it, you got to contact the Department of Financial Services to file complaints with them in terms of it. So it's not like there's an avenue to go through Utica National according to this letter. It's a matter of we got to go through New York State to file a complaint that we feel that they came to the wrong conclusion. So when I saw that, I'm like, well, that's not really. Hey, we can dispute this because they're basically saying, no, we're done. We've had two independent people look at it, and then an adjuster as well as a structural engineer both came, and it's really the structural engineer is the one that's coming to the conclusion that these cracks were not new. Even though the structural engineer that we hired through Mosaic said differently.
Well, yeah, that's kind of where I was going,
Yeah.
because I thought we had a different opinion and, you know, there's comment in there about, you know, a little jackhammer 50 feet away.
Right.
Well, that jackhammer that was on the excavator was a lot bigger than your typical jackhammer. And I mean, you could feel those vibrations for a couple blocks away. And
I asked Nick, that's his name, that is on this letter. I asked him. I said the same exact thing. I said, what are you using to determine the jackhammer? You're going off the assumption that it's a jackhammer you hold by your hand, not on the front end loader, and he just kind of dismissed it, saying our structural engineer says this. So from what I gathered is our insurance people are saying, no, this isn't a claim that they can cover because they don't believe the damage was done through an outside means, but more of just normal wear and tear. Is how they're claiming it. So yeah.
So what is the amount of money that we're looking at?
Just to repair the cracks, right? 'Cause we'll never get the veneer block will never match up, right? So it's only going to be patching.
Right. It was when we had American Masonry come in. They're the ones that worked on the front of the building a couple of years ago for the limestone project. And they said the best course was to do time and material, and they figured it was going to be in that $15,000 to $20,000 range to do the repairs.
15 to 20?
yes,
I
Yeah.
see.
So at that point, I mean, we could pursue to get this covered, but we may spend 15 to 20,000.
in the longer I'm fighting it. Yeah.
Right.
Yes. Right.
Gotcha. Okay.
That is true. So it might
Thank you for
be-
pursuing this, Dana. Thank you for pursuing it.
It might be best just to, look at it and come springtime, have them come up, and if we have the funds to repair it. They definitely, neither engineers thoughts that the cracks were posing any structural issues. It was more of an aesthetic because there's clearly cracks in the limestone, but they don't believe that it's going to lead to structural stuff. But anytime you have a crack in the building, there's a potential for water to get in there to cause damage down the road. So I think come springtime, it is worth looking at repairing it. If the board decides to put the proposal out for creating the repair reserve funds, this might be something that we could use from the persons that we would use to pay for this repair is out of that repair reserve fund. But
And we have a 2-year window to challenge this if we so wish. So if in the spring we see exacerbation of what's happening, then we can circle back.
Yes,
Second quote goes well beyond 20,000, we can reassess it then.
and then looking at this is where I would hand it off to someone else in the legal world to pursue this as opposed to myself trying to reach out to the Department of Financial Services to file a complaint against who's been asking it.
Yeah, that won't go anywhere. You're gonna have like, you have to threaten lawsuit.
Right, I mean, in that
One of those
regard,
40 doc-
Yep.
Okay. Thank you, Dana.
yeah.
Dress code policy.
Yes, so at our last meeting in December, in early December, I did provide a report from the dress code committee and some recommendations or considerations for the board to reflect upon. And it was decided at that time that at our next meeting, which is now, the board would convene and decide if what the next step should be in terms of any potential action related to the recommendations or findings of that committee. Included in what could be done would be to recommend that the policy committee of the district look at the committee report and propose changes for the board to consider in a first read with, I believe the policy committee is actually convening on the 13th of January. So that would be a timely response if that's what the board wished to do. Alternatively, the board could elect to wait until the regular code of conduct review, which takes place in the spring. Or of course, it's always within the board's prerogative to take no action in this matter at this time.
Personally, I feel we, should act on it sooner than later. Pass it on to the policy committee. We've had students work on this, community members. Instead of it just sitting here till next spring, I think we ought to keep moving forward with it. So I'll look to other members to see how you feel. Maybe even make a motion to pass it on if that's everybody's feeling. So
Dan, this is Joan.
Joan.
I'm on the policy committee and I feel that that the group of people did a really great job in forming all the information, and I think it's time to pass it on to the policy committee. And I think that I'm not sure if we can exactly get it for the 13th meeting in time, but it's definitely something that should be that I feel that it's time to pass it on.
I agree too, Joan and Dan. I agree that we should pass it on to the policy committee and move this along.
Okay.
With thanks to Tim for his leadership and the group for their work.
Definitely. Daniel, Liam.
I'll make a motion. Oh, do you want me to, I'll just make a motion that we pass this on to the policy.
Second. Okay. Give Karen a chance to catch up. So, I mean, everybody did, great work on it, and definitely thank you for your time and effort in coming up with the report that you have. So,
So I'm not gonna put up a yes or no. Could I have everybody just vote?
Yes.
Could
wait,
you-
if you can just vote,
Yes,
no,
Six,
okay,
yes.
6 yes.
Perfect.
Thank you, everybody. Superintendent's report.
So I will try and give some insight on some of the developments that have happened in the district pre-holiday break and post-holiday break. So pre-holiday break was certainly a joyous time in the district. There were many events that were well attended. Many of them were bridging on levels of normalcy that one might expect from 3 years ago and beyond. So we did hold 2 live concerts for our middle school and high school music students. Both of them were very well attended. The students did a great job under the leadership of Mr. Prosper and Ms. Kukuka. And at each of these concerts, a really nice feature as well was that the students in the art classes had art shows in the main foyer, where middle school work was on display one night and high school work was on display another. The work was great. It was insightful and fun. There was even, my favorite was a piece of photography entitled Banksy Bosworth, in which our beloved social studies teacher, Mr. Bosworth, was encapsulated in a picture in the style of British artist Banksy. You just can't make this stuff up. And it was great to see that level of creativity from our students and good humor. At the elementary school, students were also performing for a holiday concert. This was live streamed to family and friends, which is a relatively new development. Special thanks to our new IT technician, Tim Baker, for assisting with live streaming this event. And of course, a special thanks to Mrs. Briggs for her hard work in leading the music department at the elementary school. So all in all, very positive events in terms of the arts prior to the holiday break. Another very fun event that took place and was entirely student driven and led, the radio play directed by senior Hannah Wiley. This was part of her capstone project as a senior. The radio play was a modified version of It's a Wonderful Life, which, if you're not familiar with the format of a radio play, is similar to that of A Prairie Home Companion, Garrison Keillor kind of vibe. The play was a great success. It showcased a great cross-section of staff with students performing, including Mr. Mullane as Mr. Potter, which was very great. And Mr. Gotham and myself also had some bit parts in the play as well. So all told, outstanding, and we give kudos to Hannah Wiley for leading such a great effort as a student here in our district. With the addition of our new IT technician, we continue to make great strides to remove obsolete technology in the district and have made strides to update our district server. We've also recently managed to implement a project management system, which enables our IT team to manage projects and communicate progress with the team and with Dana and I, so that the, shall we say, non-tech side of the district can logistically understand and communicate with the techier side of the district. That's been a great asset to have that. On the athletics front, there have been several meetings of the CVAC and MVAC conferences since our last board meeting. Mergers for spring will be approaching. For us, that would mean softball and track with Keene. There's quite a bit of discussions around the sections about adding some sports that may to be considered non-traditional, including bowling, air rifle, and weightlifting. Many of these sports can be done virtually with coaches sending in various information, not even requiring travel. And just looking ahead already, we recently hosted the track sectionals this spring, and we are now going to be hosting in 2024 in the spring again on a 3-year rotation. We've also started the process of forming an esports team for students to participate in across the state in competitive gaming. I know that if James Bond on N64 is something that's competed, then I will take odd job and throw a hat at any student that invites me to play. Very excited about that happening. On the academic side of the house, I've been able to spend plenty of time in various classrooms in both buildings of late. I just want to draw some attention on two classes that I've seen in each of those facilities. Mrs. Mariano's math class recently conducted a boot camp unit, and this was a pretty great sight to behold. Mrs. Mariano, of course, is one of our math teachers in middle high school, and students worked on different problems and skills strewn about all over the classroom over the course of several days. Students completed problem challenges. They advanced in their rank, similar to that of a soldier, a la boot camp. And, just having seen it, when I think about best learning practices, think about infusing opportunities for students to learn at their own pace, making sure the work is challenging so that the lessons learned are embedded in student memory, and making learning experiences interactive and fun. I saw all of those on display in the classroom. So I certainly commend Mrs. Mariano for her creativity. And I knew from the equal parts of laughter and groaning in the classroom that fun and rigor were a part of the lesson, which is exactly what we would hope for. In the elementary school, I had plenty of time to spend in the library witnessing Mrs. Haney, who is doing some incredible work with our younger students through the use of the clear touch boards, such as that we have in the boardroom right now. Students in several grade levels have been learning to conduct research through interactive games and programs on their one-to-one devices, being led by Mrs. Haney on the use of the clear touch board. So all told, it's certainly a pleasure to see great teaching and learning happening in our schools day in and day out. So we commend Mrs. Mariano and Mrs. Haney for their respective efforts in that. Now we move to the post-break update portion of the meeting. And this is certainly dominated by many of the headlines as it relates to COVID-19. The district received shipments of COVID home test kits from the governor's office for distribution to school personnel and students yesterday. The iHealth antigen tests are part of a multi-phase strategy to address the extreme spike in cases we're seeing across the state and in our region. Test kits for students will be distributed tomorrow directly to students, and also on Thursday and Friday, where Mrs. Casey, Mrs. Lindsay, and I will be handing them out to parents as they drop their students off in front of the middle high school. The county and state are preparing for a rollout of a program called Test to Stay for our students, looking for a launch date in the county at potentially January 18th, the day after Martin Luther King holiday. The goal of this program continues to be to utilize testing to keep students safe and to ensure that students remain in the classroom if they are tested and symptom-free. I expect the next several weeks to be challenging on the COVID scape, with the number of cases rising in our region to beyond historic levels. Essex County reported 485 new cases in their last report, which is a drastic increase compared to any other reports they've given. However, thus far, in the first 2 days back from break, our staff and students have shown great poise and grace, and I'm confident that we will continue in this fashion over the next few weeks during, I think, maybe the most challenging part of the pandemic. So all told, feeling very grateful to work with such wonderful staff members and to have the students that we have. And that is my report.
Thanks, Tim. Thanks for the detailed COVID update.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Link information for the board. Under public content, there's the extracurricular account reconciliation. And then under some other information under executive content, and one of those was the letter that Dana talked about earlier.
I'd like to say how excited I am that the community schools program is moving forward.
Thanks, Martha. It is exciting. A lot of great developments on that front.
Tim, I have a question. I have a question about the payroll increase for the subs. Is that something sustainable, or are we just looking to get through the end of June with that?
Yeah, and this is a novel way to use unencumbered American Rescue Plan funds. We are not seeing the increase in substitute participation that we would hope for, given the rise in staff absences due to quarantining and isolations. And as a result of that, one of the novel ways that we were looking at it is to utilize some of the unencumbered ARP funds from the end of January until June only to account for an increase to try and incentivize some of the regional substitutes to come to our district, or to incentivize people who may not think about subbing in the district otherwise, because the hourly wages in regional industries may be higher than what we're offering presently. So this would be, if the board was amenable to using these federal funds for this purpose, it would be just for the remainder of the year, just to sweeten the pot, so to speak, to try and incentivize participation by people who aren't subbing presently for us.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Tim. Any other questions? Okay. Moving on to discussion, board meeting dates.
Should do linking goals.
Linking goals.
Sorry.
Sorry, I guess I gotta go back up. Linking goals with agenda item.
Ooh, I think we got a specific one. I think we can cross one off the list. The investigate the inclusion of a full-time social worker position or resources for external agencies. Boom, let's take that off.
That's true.
That happened.
I think the ongoing management of the COVID stuff that you mentioned in your report is, putting students, not just their safety and their health, but also their education, and kind of balancing on that is obviously putting students first and foremost. But I just wanted to thank all the staff and all the teachers and administrators for what has to be just a Herculean task of trying to keep all those plates spinning and keep everything going.
Well, I think also first and foremost for the students are just, and I couldn't hear everything you said, Dan, but just the testing kits that are being sent home, that are trickling down from the state level, that obviously is going to help aid in keeping those students in the classroom, whereas in the past they may have been sent home for remote learning.
And with us going for, test to stay, that's a big thing to keep the students in school, so.
Absolutely.
I'd like to be specific here. So I would go with provide essential support to students, teachers, and staff as we emerge from the pandemic.
What number is that?
That is this goal, strategic goal 1, the first one. So there's two sub goals, I guess, under, or two sub objectives under the, I guess it's the strategic goals for students first and foremost.
Okay, thank you.
Under strategic goal number 4, leadership, we've got bullets 1 and 3, support new superintendent in his transition in. I think we're doing very well with that. I hope the superintendent agrees. And under bullet number 3, elicit and guide the super strategic vision for the district, etc. I want to make sure that we make room for that in the middle of the weeds that COVID is for us.
What number was that, Martha? That last one?
That was the third bullet under strategic goal number 4, leadership.
Thank you.
Elicit and guide the super's strategic vision for the district, incorporate in the new district-wide strategic plan.
And we're still gathering information for that, I believe, so. I'll touch on that under old business, so. Okay, any others? Now I'll move on to board meeting dates. Looking at changing our meeting dates for February and March to the second and fourth Tuesday, so that our fabulous president can
I think you actually have to call him a linked up. He's not even here. Sorry,
come
continue.
and attend our meetings.
Yep, I agree.
I do have a question on the April date change. If we change it to the 12th, that's the beginning of spring break for the school. So I don't know, administrators will probably all want to be out of here.
Yep, it's the first week.
So, you know, the April 5th meeting, I would have no problem leaving on April 5th. You know, I'll gladly run that meeting, you know, in Rick's absence. And then the budget hearing dates, we can't really tinker with. And then we get into June, we can change the 2 meeting dates in June to the second and fourth Tuesday. So if nobody has any problems with this, we can put it on for a vote at our next meeting.
Dan, I had asked an additional question, and I don't know how anyone feels about this or what the process is. Is anyone open to the idea of actually conducting our meeting starting at 6 p.m. versus 6:30?
So I put a star next to the ones that were supposed to start at 6. Do you want to, are we going to start earlier? Or are we going to just start at 6 and do the budget workshops first and then run after that?
I was thinking that we'd start our meetings at 6 p.m. And I often look at some of the teachers that remain after to present, or students and those types of things that come to our meetings. And maybe some of those teachers are just hanging out in their classrooms, waiting to come to our meetings. And maybe starting the meeting at 6 p.m. would get some of the, you know, even Dana or Tim or you know, administrators that, you know, they've had a long enough day, and are we just kind of sitting around waiting to start a meeting at 6:30? And would 6 p.m. be more beneficial for numerous reasons? Just my thoughts.
So we would start a budget work session at 5:30 then, which is fine with me.
You get a half
It's fine with me as well. It's just however the group feels.
budget work
They're usually
sessions
an hour.
are very.
I think
Some are an
we
hour.
say an hour, but I don't think they go an hour. I can be very concise.
I know, I think there was one that was a longer budget work session. It was, February 1 was supposed to be 6 to 7. The March 15th one is slated for an hour and a half.
Which would newly be the 22nd, then under this adoption if we did.
Right.
Correct.
My guess is the reason that might be longer is by then most numbers, CPIUs and, I mean, our contractual numbers are in, but I don't really see why it would take an extra half hour for those things to roll the budget up.
Well, I don't care. So do you think it's just a half hour time is enough time?
Depends on how much can talk.
I will be a church mouse.
So are we saying that then all meetings would begin at 6 PM? And if we have budget meetings, then they would take place earlier, or they would take place at 6 and we would move that meeting back?
I think that's the question at the moment, is do we do the budget starting at 5 or 5:30? And then our normal meeting would start at 6.
Is there
Or do we
anything in the
just-
law that requires us to have a consistent time? Or is it kind of just, because I would just say like, let's just start it at 6 all the time, whether it's a budget that starts first or the meeting.
Predictability is a good thing for the community to know that the time is always constant, and if there's a work session prior, if people can make 5:30 for those couple of meetings, that would be good.
I mean, for me, it doesn't really matter. I am thinking like long-term, just to make sure, because as we need new board members, if someone has like a hard 9 to 5 that they can't get off, and we're starting budget sessions at 5:30, now you have somebody who has to like, you know what I mean? I don't want to get it to the point where we're pushing into where we're not going to have people being able to come to the meetings that they're supposed to be at because they, we're moving against that 5 PM. But for me personally, I can work around anything. So I would defer to everyone else, I guess.
I guess I would just defer to the administrators, the ones that are actually gonna have to be here. Is it easier just to pull a long day and then out at 6, or I don't know?
So if that happens earlier and we get out of here earlier, I will not yell at anybody.
I think it's something that we could experiment and try and see how it works and be flexible enough that if we have to revert back to the original, so be it. But I don't certainly think there's any harm with attempting to change it and see how it works.
Sure, why not?
Again, I often think about some of the teachers that remain or the building principals that, present and I just feel like, they're sitting around waiting to come to a meeting and, why not try to start something earlier?
I'm curious why the budget hearings can't be messed with.
What do you mean, Martha?
You mean
The dates?
No, the time. I thought I heard Karen say that, but maybe I was wrong.
we're talking about the work sessions.
Yeah, the work session. So are we gonna do the work sessions at 5:30 then? Start at 5:30? Is that what we decided?
Yes.
I just need someone to say it.
Yeah.
No one's saying anything, so I'm saying yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's not like we do a budget session at every meeting anyway, so.
Right. February, March, there's one in each month. Yeah.
2, maybe 3 meetings.
Right, and the
Right.
other thing that, like, one of the things Tim and I were talking about, going to Wilmington is really not feasible during COVID.
Right.
Like that room, so I think that we need to get rid of the May 3rd meeting and just do the budget hearing on the 10th. We don't
Okay.
have to do it on the 3rd.
We do that in the auditorium.
No. Well, no, we could do it here, and we could just have it streamed.
Is there is there another venue in Wilmington? I don't want Wilmington to feel like we're, I understand like the concerns with that room because it is very small. Is there an alternate venue in Wilmington that we could use?
I still think we don't have the smart board and whatnot.
Right,
Well, I
that's
understand
the
that,
other problem is,
but-
like, we have to bring everything with us.
Right.
And if we're live streaming the public hearing on the
That's very
Yeah.
true, yeah.
then we wouldn't be in person, but, you know, they could
That's true.
still participate. So we can, make third off.
Right, so what I'll do is I will put together the updated calendar, probably just leave this as it is and make a few tweaks on it. And put down on the bottom something about changing the time. And we'll put it up for a vote at the next meeting. And are we gonna do the next meeting? Because I believe that the third Tuesday does not affect Rick, that we should start February.
Correct.
Go to the second and the fourth.
Okay.
Okay.
318.
Right. Right. And then the one that's on February 22nd, that is the day that we're on break for those 2 days. We want to just leave it there?
Works for me.
Let me ask you guys.
Yeah.
I mean,
I don't know how else, there's not an extra Tuesday in there for us to space out appropriately, so I think that would represent the last day of a break, the evening, so I think that's certainly manageable. I appreciate that. We can handle that. Keeping that as would be the 22nd of February, is that correct? So that's fine with us.
Are you sure? Because that's kind of, I think that's kind of hard, Tim, when, you know, it's your day off essentially, you know, and we're asking you to be back in time for a meeting. If you're out of town, the same thing with Dana and Karen.
Is there,
I mean, we don't technically have a Tuesday off unless we take it as vacation.
I can go either way.
It doesn't matter to me.
Let's move it to the 22nd then,
Okay,
if you guys are fine,
perfect.
especially if you guys are coming in anyway.
I am now.
It's not an administrative holiday anyway, so.
We're all good. I'm sorry. We're all good. I appreciate everyone's compliments.
We can move it later. What if we started at 10 p.m.?
I'm more of an 8 a.m. kind of person.
Right? Kind of along those lines, I would like to be able to, this document. Can you see that at all? It's running for school board. I'd like to be able to start putting some stuff on social media because we have just 2 seats up, Rick and Liam, correct?
Yeah.
And if I recall, you're not running. And I know Rick's not running.
Yeah, it was a negotiation to get here with the baby in the hand, so.
Bring the baby next time.
I think I just missed something. Liam's not running?
What we just heard.
Just heard it, you heard it from, yeah, off the.
Liam's no.
Hold on, I got to tweet it.
I am actively looking for soliciting, I guess, a replacement.
Well, good for you. A leader's most important role is to replace themselves. So good for you.
I feel like I might pull Joan. Maybe I'll come back when Viola's, 4 or 5 years from now. Maybe miss a 4-year, take 4-year break. The people want me.
Of course. Okay, so I will post this on Facebook.
Yes.
And if you make it shareable, we can, those of us that are on, we can share it also.
I think it's all shareable on the school page.
Yeah.
Yep.
Great.
Perfect.
Okay, the meeting minutes for consent. The coaching volunteer assistant was also consent. I did have a question on that. You said in your little content that you guys have put a procedure together. Is it something you can share or?
It's volunteers need to fill out an application as if they were going to be a coach. That will initiate notification to the administration so we can ensure that all the conditions are met from a liability perspective.
7 other action items, those were all consent. We do not have a special education packet for our next meeting,
Wait, did
though.
I not put it on there?
I did not see one.
There's two.
There's two, yeah. Well, the
Yeah.
21 and then one.
So it says
Oh.
12/21 and it says 1/18/22. There's two.
Okay.
It's like the 12/21 one was the one we just approved today.
Right.
Right.
Go to the cause.
I didn't see any emails.
Thanks for checking.
Yep.
Next meeting date and location will be January 18th. Our initial budget workshop. And we're going to start that at 5:30.
I don't think that's one of those early ones. Is it?
Says initial budget.
Yeah, I know, but I don't think that's,
In the change.
yeah, it's, so if you looked on the calendar, the budget calendar, it's not time that we've allotted extra time for.
Okay.
Do you remember what we normally do at that first one? It's like very vague. It's just a few discussions.
I think it's more like a real general overview.
Right.
Because we really don't have much of the information.
Right,
I mean, CPIU really doesn't get published until early February. Healthcare, our health stuff is until February. So really, it's more about here's the process and here's the, the knowns. So there's more unknowns than knowns. Might have something from the governor in terms of ideas and like a proposal, but it's probably not.
Okay.
So really just, here's the overview. I can share you the where we stand and how bleak it looks already.
so
We'll go with the weak way.
Yikes.
so the February 8th meeting will be at 5:30.
Okay. So January 18th, 6 o'clock.
And then the February 22nd meeting, I have here work session if needed. So I guess we can determine after the 8th what we're gonna, if we need to come in early or not.
Okay. Okay, next is old agenda topics. We have the leadership succession. Karen's going to share on Facebook information that we can then start passing around, talking to people about running for the school board. And we also have a strategic plan. Any updates or?
We've secured all of our quotes, correct, Dana? And we have not moved forward in the process beyond that. So it is certainly on our radar, but it'll be something that we move on.
I guess that could be the discussion is, how do you want to determine, because we do have several proposals, what avenue do you want to go down, hey, to determine the route we go? If you want to, board decision or left to the administrative team to decide.
Dana, I thought that I read you said that it was policy to accept the lowest bid. Am I correct?
That is typically the case, but with anything, a board does have the ability to reject the lowest bid if they think it's not credible.
I see. Well, from my point of view, having looked at the bids, I would like to accept the lowest bid and move
Okay.
forward.
The associate one? I believe that was the lowest one, is that right?
I'm sorry, I'm having trouble hearing you.
DLC Associates?
Yes, that one. Yep.
To the COSER, and I actually did, Martha, reach out to BOCES to see what was the process for a vendor to be rolled into a COSER to be kind of covered that way. Unfortunately, I've never got an answer back. But I did ask that question to BOCES to see how you can add, because that one proposal, I forget the name of the group, they seemed very intriguing. They were slightly higher. Just to see what intrigued me about it was it could potentially be considered a minority owned business. And I know there's some incentive there too, in terms of minority owned companies.
That's a good point. I just want to make sure we move forward and don't sit on it with all the competing priorities.
We've gone any direction the board wants.
All right, so we'll bring that one up at our agenda setting and look at putting it under discussion or.
Thank you.
Any other old business? Anybody has any new business? Oh, you guys are awful quiet.
Crickets.
I guess we're into proposed executive session. Look for a motion to go into executive session for the purpose of discussing the collective negotiations and current litigation.
Yes, I'll make that motion.
Thank you,
Second.
Liam. Thank you,
Second.
Colleen.
Yes.
Yes, are you voting?
Yes, great. Yeah, I went to the strategic.
Martha, are you voting? Liam?
Yeah, just yes.
Okay.
For some reason, I'm not.
All right, 6 yes. Thank you, Dana. Thank you, Karen.